first year teacher.
Hmm.
I just mentioned you earlier right now, but I've always wanted a first year teacher on the podcast, and I'm pretty excited about that. And overall, how are things going?
I'd say that they're going relatively well. I mean, for the first year, I don't think that I could be in a better situation in my first year. I have a really good mentor teacher that's been
Good.
helping out throughout the year. The principal has been extremely helpful as far as getting me the materials that I need to teach on an everyday basis. And as far as my first year, I think that it definitely is going better than I expected. I'm
That's
at a school that there are, of course, like every school, there are some behavior issues, but a lot of the students are, very respectful. And despite being a first year teacher, I feel that I maintained a positive energy and a positive vibe in my classroom for sure. Yeah.
that's good. That's what grade is that? What grade do you
Eighth
teach?
grade. Eighth
Eighth
grade.
grade.
Yeah.
Okay. Eighth
Yeah.
grade. Yeah, that's exciting. Middle school.
Yeah.
Middle school. So is
It
this
is.
a
Yeah. Middle school is very, very tough because I feel that they are in a stage in their life where they are very unsure of who they are
right?
exactly and what they want to do. And I get the joy of seeing that every day just because, so I'm an eighth grade U.S. history teacher, but we're also part of the career planning. So a lot of the students, like I'll go to them and say like, "What do you want to do?" And I always get the response like, "I don't know what I want to do," or "I want to be this," or a lot of them are trying to get jobs that they know they make a lot of money in, which
Yeah,
honestly is crazy because I know when I was in high school, a lot of seniors were trying to get jobs that they knew they could make a lot of money in. So like that kind of thing really never changed, but um, a lot of them are unsure, and I think that just tells me a lot about eighth grade in general. Is they're not exactly sure what high school is going to bring, and
mhm.
they're not exactly sure, what their life is going to look like within the next 2 to 4 years in general. So, it's exciting for them, and it's also very nerve wracking for them. And that's pretty cool for me because I'm like I said, I'm a first year teacher, so I'm excited to see what it's going to look like 4 to 5 years down the line when I go to visit those high schools and see those kids that I just had my very first year of teaching with. So
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I feel like nowadays life is pretty uncertain, right? So you're an eighth grade student. Yeah, you're eighth grade student, and things aren't the way they used to be, right? Things aren't the way they used to be, where you could get a job, like you have a stable job, but like to get a job and work for 40 years and retire and have a pension, like that kind of stuff really doesn't. I don't think that happens
yeah,
anymore. There's a
only
lot
that,
of. Go
yeah,
ahead.
they're surrounded by things like social media where
Right.
they see, YouTubers making millions of dollars and they're like, I want to do something like that. I have multiple students that say that on a daily basis that they just want to be a YouTuber or, you know, um, pretty much invest in stocks and stuff like that, which is
Yeah.
cool to see. But like, it's just crazy. There's so much opportunity out there now that they just have no idea. They have no idea what's truly out there for them. Yeah.
That's true. Like yeah, on YouTube you can make a lot of money now. It's just a lot
Mhm.
of on TikTok you can make money. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All these little social media, all these things, these little gigs, you can make, you know, I don't know, I guess a living now on that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. They
So
watch you.
yeah, what
Oh,
do you do when they ask you that when they're like, I want to be a YouTuber? What do you tell them?
it kind of puts me in a tough spot because you do see, like you said, a lot of people making millions of dollars on YouTube,
Hmm.
and um, I just, I'm a big football fan, and I don't, um, I always see those stories of those people that are saying that say, oh, I'm going to be an NFL star one day,
Yeah,
and there's always that they always have that story like the teacher said that I couldn't make it or something like that. So I never want to be that, not just for my personal pride, but I never want to be that person that says that you can't do something. So that puts me in a tough spot. Um, but at the same time, like it's very hard to obtain. And I think that's usually what I just say to them is like, okay, like you got to be willing to put the work in if that's what you truly want to do. And I say that in everything, honestly, not
Good.
just YouTube. A lot of students want to be professional sports players, and I say, all right, if you got to put the work in for that, because it's not just gonna snap of the fingers, there it is, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
good that you're not crushing their dreams and saying it's not possible.
Hmm.
Come on, man. You're never gonna be a YouTuber. You're never gonna do that.
Right.
It's good. You instruct them. You're like, hey, you know what? You want this? Go ahead and this is what you have to do. Or these you have to grind. You definitely have to grind.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because a lot of them, again, and this is eighth grade, they could be somewhere this year, and their mindset can be completely different next year, and that's something that I want to be able to push onto them is by next year, like you might not think that you can do this now, but eventually if you just put your mind to it and you keep grinding on it, yeah, exactly like you just said, just keep going. You can do something like that. And I live in a county that has a lot of athletes, a ton of athletes. Our school is huge in sports like soccer, and we have a lot of kids that play baseball, like Pop Warner League, or I'm sorry, football, like Pop Warner League football, and baseball and everything. So, um, I see the kids that want to put their mind into that, but they also have to put their mind into education, and we try to tell them it's like the way you do, you know, everything um, is how you should do everything. So like the way you play baseball is how you should play in the classroom, right? That kind of thing. So like just keeping your mind right from that aspect of things. Yeah.
That's right. So if you're playing baseball and you
Hmm.
have to get up, you go to practice, you have to make sure you're on time, you have to make sure your uniform's clean, you have to make sure you have your equipment, you have to be responsible, you have to pick up your teammates. All those things you're doing in baseball are the same things you got to do in life. They
Right.
translate the same way in the classroom, with your mom, with your dad, with your friends. If you could translate good habits from what you're learning in whatever sport you're doing and put it in other places, you're going to be a successful person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I feel that even goes with kids that they want to play Fortnite and become professional gamers, like things like that. I mean, just keep going. And, if they're streaming or whatever they're doing, then, I mean, put your mind to it if that's truly what you want. And that just goes back to what we said before about like, how do I react? How do I react to, kids that want to be YouTubers? Like, it's the same thing. Like, just keep going. You got to be consistent with it. That's the number one thing, just being consistent with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so you coming in first year teacher, do you think that student teaching prepared you for the classroom? Your student teaching?
Mm, I would say that mine absolutely prepared me for teaching. And I know that's not something that's always said. I know that that's not always the case, but
Yeah,
I will say this. Again, I was in a classroom that had a really good structure, and I learned a lot from that structure. Like my teacher, my cooperating teacher, I was in a seventh grade world history class for 4 months last year, January to April. And every single day from day one, the students, no matter who was there, it didn't matter who was there. If I was there, the cooperating teacher, substitute teacher, whoever, um, knew exactly what to do,
yeah,
and I think that's exactly um, the kind of structure that I wanted in my classroom. And honestly, I haven't cracked the code just yet
yeah,
because I am a first year teacher, so I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
figure it
yeah,
out. But so like they came in the classroom, sat down, they looked at the board for what they needed, and that's exactly what they did. They just prepared and were ready. Once that bell rang, they knew that they were going to be learning, and that kind of thing. And although I was there for only 4 months, and we did some outside, like, observations and things
yeah,
like that we got to do, but at the same time, it was in the middle of COVID, and a lot of things that we could have done if COVID never happened did not get to happen. So, from my understanding, we were supposed to, be able in the classroom longer than we were, but because
yeah,
of those circumstances, that wasn't the case. Um, but no matter the situation, I feel that we were um, prepared for teaching. Um, as far as going back to like the structure of the classroom and everything like that, like I said, um, I think it does have to do with your grade level as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're in seventh grade, I've noticed seventh graders were a little bit easier to get to do things than eighth graders, because eighth
Mhm.
graders, they think they're like grown adults now because they're
Yeah.
about to
Yeah.
be high. So just trying to deal with that was a little bit different, and I think the grade shift definitely made a difference. Um, but as far as preparation for being in the classroom and physically being there as the only teacher, I think that I was able to make the adjustment pretty well.
All right. So what was it? You got to tell us the secret. Like, what prepared you? What was the structures? What did you notice specifically that you're like, okay, this teacher right here is doing something right, and I'm gonna take that piece and I'm gonna
Mm,
use it in my classroom. What specifically was it?
yeah. So the number one thing that I noticed was she was extremely organized.
Okay.
Extremely organized. She knew where the IEPs were, the 504. She had everything printed out, all the classwork from the day before. She had, I mean, even throughout the entire year, like I never saw her make copies. She probably made copies like 5 or 6 times throughout the year because she had over everything already printed out.
Yeah.
So like she was good to go no matter what. And I think that's what it came down to was just if you walk into a classroom and it's a mess, you
Mm.
know that the class structure and the way the kids are going to learn is going to be a mess as well.
Right.
And hers was tidy as can be. So like honestly, from day one, as soon as I came in as my first year, I wanted to make it so that my room was always as tidy as can be. And I have some similar setups. Like when my students come in, they'll usually grab their notebook and they'll look at the front board, and the front board always will say, okay, yeah, you're definitely supposed to have your notebook. And it will usually say like if you should grab your laptop or if you should just not grab it out because you usually don't need it.
Hmm.
Um, so that's my structure. The difference is between, just thinking back now that you brought it up, the difference is that my class, being in eighth grade, runs a little bit differently than in seventh grade because she used a lot of things like Nearpod and stuff like that. So the kids already knew that as soon as they came in the class, they were opening up their laptop. Mine, it varies. It's not always on. We might be going over notes one day, we might be doing a project the next. So just
Yeah.
always checking that and making sure that they're checking that is like the number one thing. And I have had to reteach those expectations a few times throughout the year, but I think by now that they're definitely in the groove on that. So
Yeah. And how did she deal with difficult behavior? When you noticed the kids were out of line, what did she do?
mhm. So she would definitely make it known to that kid that they weren't doing something that they were supposed to do. Um, and that would usually be on, she would usually do something along the lines of like, hey, what are you doing? Like that kind of thing. Like, you're
Yeah.
not supposed to be doing that, and just make sure that they're back in line. And it would just be silly middle school things
Yeah.
like two kids like,
Whatever. But yeah.
yeah, like
Touching
something.
each other, pushing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I got lucky that the school that I student taught at was probably one of the better ones in Pittsburgh,
Hmm.
to where that honestly, like from what I remember, there wasn't a lot of behavior issues. There were students that would like not do their work,
Yeah.
um, and like we would have to figure those things out, um, and like sit through the meetings on those. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of like extreme behavior issues to where, we were having to get like the assistant principal or principal into the room. So
Was it
that
was
was,
it just that classroom or was it your entire school?
I think, from what I understood, it was the entire school.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't a lot of which is I again middle school. That's hard to really come by, but um, it was a smaller school. It was very small,
Yeah.
and honestly, the way it was set up that year that I was student teaching was um, the school that we were in was actually um, in part of the high school because the middle school was being like they were constructing a new middle school that year. So that was being remodeled. So
Yeah.
they just stuffed the middle school into one quarter of the high school. So you would think that there would be some behavior issues in that case, but there honestly wasn't. The only thing that I will say is that I did, you know, catch students in the hallway doing stuff that they weren't supposed to be, like vaping and stuff like that. But those were mostly high school students. So like,
Okay.
so that was like the issue that we kind of ran
Yeah.
into. Like, are you a high school student or are you a middle school student? And just like figuring that stuff out. But um, going back to the original question, like you said, I think that she honestly just made it known that they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing and would either just yell at them or send them to the assistant principal to, talk things out. But
Yeah.
that was really it. So
Okay.
it's much different than what I'm dealing with now because what I'm dealing with now is, I mean, it's a very good school, um, but I still have like I have a lot more behavior issues now than I feel like I did when I was student teaching.
Yeah.
Um, in our system, I like our system. It is like the students have like a planner, and in that planner is a track card. If they have so many track card signings, it then becomes a referral and
Okay.
it just keeps adding up over time. So
So
I've
you
had
guys
to,
have a system. That sounds like a pretty good system. Yeah.
mm, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And from student teaching, I just don't remember a system necessarily being in place. I just think that it was more like if a kid does something they're not supposed to do, like go see the assistant principal,
Yeah.
that kind yeah.
I always feel like if you have good classroom management, right? If you're a good teacher, a good veteran
Mm,
teacher, um, the way you handle behavior, difficult behavior is really relational. It might be just,
yeah,
hey, stop doing that.
yeah,
Stop. And because you have a good relationship with that student, the student's like, oh, my bad. All right, I'll stop or whatever. And they just stop. And it's all based on the relationship you built with these kids, right?
mm,
If you have a bad relationship and the only times you talk to students is because you're trying to give them you're yelling at them or you're reprimanding them or something like that, and that's the only time you're really
right,
talking to students,
yeah,
you're gonna get a lot of pushback. It's gonna be hard for you. And you just telling them to stop, they probably won't because of the relationship. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and that's like the number one thing that I'm trying to do as a first year teacher is try to understand how to build those relationships with the
Yeah.
students because I think that that is a big reason that I wanted to be a teacher because there were teachers that I remember from my middle school experience that I always felt, built those relationships with me and helped me get through middle school and high school, right? Like those are the teachers that I remember. I don't remember the teachers that, like you said, only talked to me when they were yelling at me about stuff and stuff like that, So,
Yeah. So
mm,
so you're in the classroom now, that's what you're trying to build right now is those relationships.
right.
How
Yeah.
would you say you're building those relationships as a first year teacher? What are you doing?
Honestly, just asking them simplest questions like tomorrow's going to be Monday. Like, how was your weekend? Stuff like
Yeah.
that. Now we'll just have those conversations now. Friday, obviously. Does anyone have any plans over the weekend? I know
Yeah.
the athletes in my classroom. I know the band players in my classroom, the music, the orchestra, you know, all those kids. I know the chorus kids, all those kids. So I know those kids, and usually, like, our school puts out a message saying, "Hey, like, orchestra has a concert tonight," like that kind of stuff. So I'll just ask them, like, "How was your concert last night?" Things like that. Just trying to get an understanding of, you know, how things are truly going in their life. Because one thing I noticed is, you'll ask questions like that and they'll just like shy away from it and be like, it was good. And then right away, I know something wasn't okay. So like trying to get an understanding of who they are, what they like, that kind of stuff. And honestly, since I'm only 25, they think that I'm like their best friend sometimes. Like it's like I'm like easy. Like I
Close
have a
in
lot
age.
of call me bro and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And I'm all right, I'm easy. I'm not your bro. But like they think
yeah,
it's so like that kind of
yeah.
stuff. But
That's
um
funny.
yeah. Yeah. Like it stuff like that is hilarious to me. But it's just like, and I think that's the number one thing is like I'm a history teacher, and you know, just trying to. I am their history teacher, trying to tell them that like I'm your history teacher. I'm not your bro, but
Yeah,
like that kind of stuff. Um, but trying to find that fine line of like okay, like building a relationship with them while also building a an environment of like respect and rapport, like that kind of stuff. Just trying to create that environment of respect with them while also um, being professional and trying to have that professional environment as well. Because I've noticed that, you know, sometimes we'll get on those side conversations of like, how was your weekend? And kids will tell me crazy stories. Like, and I'm just like, you know, like,
you're
all right.
like, I don't want to hear everything. Don't tell me everything. Don't tell
Yeah.
me everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But over the year, I definitely noticed that they've become a lot more comfortable with me, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I walk a really fine line like
Hmm.
that where I'm professional, but you could talk to me about anything, right? I and we
Exactly.
and we joke, and we were having a good time, but I'm professional, and I feel like when those students cross the line, when they say something, I'm like, that's
Right.
not right.
Right.
I check them real quick. I gotta be like, no, no, nope.
Mm.
We're gonna
Yeah.
stop right there, and I just check them real quick. And
Hmm.
then, you start to form this reputation, right? You start to form this reputation like, oh, Mister's cool. You can talk about these things, but like, don't say these things because,
Yeah.
he's gonna, and you start to build this reputation. And then, then they're good. They know where the line is. You've
Mm.
established that line, like, we're good. We're good up until a point. And then when you cross that line, well, now we're not good anymore. Now
Right.
it's, and so you just build that reputation, and I know you're in eighth grade right now.
Hmm.
Sixth grade students know about you. Seventh grade students know about you.
Exactly.
They know they're gonna come up to your grade, and they might be in your classroom, and that you're just building a reputation. And you're at a school. If you're at a school for a long period of time, they're gonna know you, and
Hmm.
the reputation that you built is gonna. It's gonna dictate how they perform, how they act in the classroom.
Right.
And so if you're building that reputation now of like, hey, you know what, I'm cool, but I'm drawing a line too, and we have structure in this classroom, and this is what we do, and you see the kids walking on my classroom, they look happy. You could come in my classroom and look happy too. You could,
Exactly.
and you just start building that reputation, and
So
yeah, it sounds like
that
you
goes
are
back.
doing
Yeah,
it.
that goes back to the video I saw you posted actually, just trying to build, relationships with the students in sixth and seventh grade too that, I'm not going to see for a year or two. And
Yeah,
just trying to get an idea of what, you know, maybe it's like through coaching or whatever the case, but stuff like that, just trying to get an idea of, what they're going to be like when they come to my classroom in 2 years. So that kind of
yeah.
stuff. But I want to ask you a question actually. So I know you're an administrator. Are you at the high school level or?
Right now I'm in elementary. It's a K through six school
Oh,
right
okay.
now,
Okay. So,
but I
uh,
taught middle school for
mhm,
like 6 years, something like that.
okay. So, as an administrator, how do you build a relationship to where you can get along with the kids and the kids can feel comfortable around you while also being respected as the head of authority in the school? How does that work?
It starts off with those conversations you're talking about, right? Those little conversations, and I want to have them a lot. I want the students to know that they could talk to me, right? So
Mm,
I'm not just in my office. I'm just sitting there, in my office. I'm visible. So I'm
mm,
I'm out there. I'm greeting students as they're coming in. Good morning. Good morning. I like your shirt. Good shirt. Like your shoes. Cool shoes. Oh, where's the jacket? You don't have a jacket? We have an extra jacket for you over here. During lunchtime, I do supervision. So I'm out there. I'm like, hey, how's the food, guys? But you need an extra pizza? Let me go ask somebody for an extra pizza. And I go over there and I do things. And I'm just like walking around, making myself visible and just talking to them because I need them to know that they could talk to me. Right. And
Right.
if I'm just having little conversations, they get used to talking to me. They're like, oh, I could talk to Mister. He always talks to me. So I could talk to him all the time.
Right.
And so I want to make it so that it's extremely comfortable that they could talk to me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things I do. I'm out in the yard all the time, and so I'm refereeing the basketball game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get all the students with difficult behaviors to play whatever sport. So I'll play kickball. I invite them all. Let's go. I'll play kickball. I get the game going, and I'm the referee, and that's a way where I could show my authority. Like, no, you're out. No, you're out. That's it. You're out. All right,
Right.
next, like, oh, hey, everybody behind the gate right there. Everybody behind the gate. All right, good. You're right there. All right, go ahead and let's start the game. Or I'm the referee of a basketball game. Blow the whistle, foul, take the ball out. And they get used to listening to me. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Referee, he's listening. We have to listen to him. He blows the whistle. And I start to like do little things like that. Like whistle blows. I tell everybody you got 5 minutes to use the restroom, get water, and then get in line. All right, guys. All right, let's go. You got 5 minutes. Let's go. 2 minutes. All right, let's go. And I want them to get used to listening to me. And it's the little things. Get in line. It's the restroom break is over. You're out. Just get used
Yeah.
to listening to me. And
Yeah.
so when they have to listen to me on the big things, like, okay, now you're in the office. Now you messed up and you're in the
Right.
office. Take a
Yeah.
seat. And it's a whole ritual when they come inside my office. It's like a whole thing. It's like they come in, they gotta be respectful. They take a seat. I'm like, here's your seat. You don't get to choose your seat. This is where you're gonna sit right here in this chair, right across from me. And then I explained to the kids, like, okay, every time you come to my office, I want you to know that when you're in here, it's because you did something. And most times I'm gonna call your parents. Most times you're gonna get a consequence. I just want you to know that when you walk in here, that's what's gonna happen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so used to talking to me already. And when I ask them, like, okay, so what happened? Tell me what happened.
So they're
And
on.
yeah, they're like, all right, mister, well, this is what happened. I did this and this and that. And all right, now where do you think you went wrong? Oh, well, like I shouldn't have did that. Yeah, you should have done that. What else could you have done besides that? Well, I could have done this, or
Mm.
that. Okay, well, you should have done that, I think. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, that. And I'll say something like, well, how do we repair this harm? You messed up. You messed up. So how do we repair that harm? Maybe I should like whatever we agree upon. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. And I tell them, and there's always consequences, natural consequences and consequences I gave you. Like naturally, your friends are gonna be upset with you. You shouldn't have did whatever you did, and that made them upset. Your teacher, the relationship with you and your teacher, it's you're breaking that relationship. So that's another natural consequence. So how do you repair that? What are you gonna do to repair that? And you're gonna get consequences for me. I'm calling your parent, and they might give you consequences. I'm gonna call your parent, and then you might have some bench time. You might have some little bit of detention time. What's a fair amount? Like, oh, whatever amount of minutes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And they do it. And so that's how I do it. And it's a little different from when I was a classroom teacher. It's a little different when I'm a classroom teacher because as a classroom teacher, I could be more jokey. I could be
Yeah.
more jokey and more friendly.
Yeah.
And I could, I could do that. But I'm still jokey and I'm still friendly, but not as much as when I was a teacher. But I
Okay.
still,
Yeah.
I still do that. So,
That's what I was trying to get an idea of because I feel like, as you said, as a teacher, you wanna find that line of like jokey and friendly, but also trying to deliver the instruction effectively. And if there's a disruption or anything that interrupts that, or any situation that you know dismays that, then there has to be a consequence. So I think what you just did was actually give me some advice as a first year teacher, because just finding that line it can be difficult,
hmm yeah,
and
it can be
and it
difficult.
and it's not very different from an administrator's perspective as it
hmm
is from a teacher's perspective. You just said it too, like it's just a little bit different, but yeah, that gave me some insight, so that was cool.
Yeah, so like when you have like when I was a classroom teacher, it was the same thing. Let me talk to you.
Hmm.
Let me talk to you. We're talking about anything.
Yeah.
We get breakfast in the classroom, so it's like, hey, how's breakfast, guys? Good. Hey, is there an extra orange over there? Hey, so and so, and you talk to
Hmm.
them. The morning greeting. All right, guys, we're about to start math, but before we start math, can we have a conversation about what does anybody want to talk before we start math? Like what happened last night? Does anybody want to share? And they
Right.
start to share. And you just start these little conversations where they're so used to talking to you and open. They could openly communicate with you, and you start to build those relationships. I'm a
Hmm.
big believer in the hierarchy of needs.
Right.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You start at the base. You take care of they're hungry. Let's feed them. They're thirsty. Okay, I have some water bottle. You go outside and get water. You need to use a restroom. Let's take care of that need as well. Let's take
Yeah.
care. It's a little
That.
hot. Let's open the window. You
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable. Let's make you feel
Yeah.
comfortable.
Right.
Then
Yeah.
after that, it's like, the whole caring part, making them feel like, this is their home away from home. You keep them safe,
Hmm.
all that stuff. And you build up their self-esteem.
Hmm.
That's how I build relationships in the classroom. That's how I build
Yeah.
relationships now too, is taking care of those base needs, making them feel like they're loved, like they belong, building up their self-esteem, putting them in positions where they can be successful, and just build them up, build them up, build them up. And that's how I build a relationship with these guys. And
Yeah.
it's not because I'm the funniest guy or I'm the most charming person or like I'm the most friendly. I'm not even the most friendliest person at this school.
Hmm.
Uh, but they know that when they come to me, they're going to be taken care of. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
When they come to me,
Yeah.
they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And, you know,
That's I think that's a good way to do it because honestly, just thinking back to it now, I don't remember any teacher that yelled at me as being like a good, you know, I never built a relationship with a teacher that's ever yelled at me, and I think your approach is much much better. And it's kind of crazy because um I went to I went to Pittsburgh Public Schools. Okay.
mhm,
You know, it was very urban. We had a lot of, fights, a lot of students that were probably, you know, on the just in the position that, it was a lower income school.
yeah,
Let's just
yeah.
okay.
Let's just say that.
Um
Yeah, I get it.
yeah, it was a lower income school, and that's where I went to high school. So there was a lot of situations in a lot of days where I felt that that's all the teachers did was just yell and yell and yell because that's all they felt that they could do, right?
Yes.
Um, and the, and I, come into uh, Naples as a first year teacher, and one of the first things that I'm told by my mentor teacher is he's been teaching like 30 years. He's like, I've been teaching 30 years. I've never yelled at a single student.
Mm-hmm.
And, that might be give or take. That might not necessarily be true. But, but in reality, though, like what you're saying applies to that. It's like you build the relationship, you have those conversations, and then eventually that respect isn't going to be crossed. If it is crossed, then they understood what they did wrong without you even having to yell at them.
Yeah.
With the
Let's talk about yelling for a second. Let's
Yeah,
talk about yelling because
yeah.
I don't yell, and if I
Hmm.
yell, it's because of safety. Like, hey,
Exactly.
get down. Like if
Yeah.
they're calling me something, they're gonna get hurt. Hey,
Mm,
get your hands off them. Like
yeah.
that's I'm gonna yell. I'm gonna yell
Right.
for safety. And
Exactly.
that's it. There is no
Yeah.
other time where I'm just gonna yell at a kid.
Right.
I'm just not gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know, that will and I said this before, but there's a selfish reason why I don't yell at kids or
Hmm.
yell in general. And that's because when I if I yell, I get depleted. And I learned this early on as a teacher. If I yell, at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. And
Hmm.
I'm like, damn, why am I
Exactly.
so tired? Like, damn,
Yeah.
I'm so exhausted. I'm like, it's probably because you exerted your energy, you yelling and getting upset.
Like,
You're an emotional
yeah.
roller coaster, and now you're exhausted. That's
Yeah.
why. And I'm like,
Exactly.
okay. So I made it a point to like, you know what? I'm not gonna yell. I'm never gonna yell. It's so that one of its selfish reason for my own health, but then the other part is you can't build a relationship with anybody if you yell at them. Like, this is some
Yeah.
common sense stuff. Like,
Yeah, that's
if I'm
yeah,
upset with you, like, let you did something in the classroom, you didn't follow my directions. Okay, maybe I wasn't clear with establishing, the rules in the classroom to begin with.
exactly.
Let me go reestablish these. Here, hey, you didn't understand. Let me show you what to do. This is what I expect you to do. Okay, you have any questions about that? No, no, I don't have any questions. All right, cool. So that's from this point forward, that's what I expect you to do. Versus like, hey, I told you not to do that, and then and yelling and go back to your seat and like all that. That's ridiculous. That's
A waste
that's
of your that's
waste
yeah,
your energy, broke a relationship. You
right.
scared the class. Like they're not gonna want to talk to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And then and sometimes they team up against you.
Hmm.
Now they're all against you. Now you got the whole class against
Yeah.
you, and you're in trouble. Now
Mm,
you're in trouble.
exactly. Yeah.
Well,
No,
you know,
that's the one thing I've learned throughout the first year. It's like, I mean, I'm still at the stage where, I'm trying to build those relationships and everything like that, and trying to get an understanding of the kids and their backgrounds and everything like that. So, um, there has been times throughout the year, and that's exactly what you said, just throughout the year where I have yelled at a kid, and honestly, that's exactly it. I felt depleted right after, and by the end of the day, I'm just like, that was just a draining day. So I'm trying to get a better understanding of
yes.
you know how I can go about things a better way, right?
You had mentioned a tidy classroom. Right?
Hmm.
You said a
Yeah.
tidy classroom, and if you have a tidy classroom, then most like things gonna be run smooth, right? And it's the same with like your health in the
Mm.
classroom, right? If you're if you're on an emotional roller coaster and you eat poorly and
Hmm.
you just drinking sugary drinks
Right.
and you sit on your ass the whole time and you don't get up, you're just sitting there and you don't do anything, you don't walk around the classroom, yet you're gonna be suffering. You're gonna be suffering, right? But if
Exactly.
you keep a tidy health, right?
Mm.
You eat as best as you can. You drink your water. You move around in the classroom, and you're going to be okay. Things are gonna be better.
Yep.
And you just gotta take care of that health.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
Yeah. Went on a tangent about health there. But how do I really believe? I'm a big firm believer in that, man. I don't, like just there's so many little things. There's just all these little things that if you
Mhm.
just take care of the little things, you're gonna be okay. You'll be
Right.
fine.
Well, and it goes back to the way you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yes.
If
Back to the point.
not, yeah, exactly. If you're not taking care of yourself in the classroom, how are you expecting the kids to take care of themselves in your classroom? Things like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
it just goes. It's crazy how everything ties together in that sense. But
Yes. It all ties together. It all ties together, and it's one of my things is like treat other people the way you want to be treated. Something as
exactly.
simple as
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Something simple as that, right? Like I want to be treated with respect, so I'm gonna treat you with respect. Uh,
Hmm.
I want to be treated with care and love, so I'm gonna show care and loving toward you, right? I want you to feel comfortable here, like I'm gonna make you feel. So it, it, I feel like these are simple things, like if you just ran your classroom based on that, like treat other
Yep.
people the way you want to be treated, um, it would you would be fine. I feel
Exactly.
like you would be fine. And people make it very complicated, and um, there's educators who are like, um, you know, they messed up. They need a harsh consequence. They need to be
Yeah.
sent to the principal's office. They need to be suspended for X amount of days. And then when they come back, they need to apologize, or I can't accept them back in the classroom, and like all this ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, man,
When they're just kids, that's all it is. Like they're just learning how to manage their own life. That's all it is. Like,
that's it.
I mean, 25 and I'm still doing the same thing. So it's
That's
not
it.
like it's not any farther from that, like
Yeah.
yeah.
They're just learning how to manage their life, and
Yeah,
they just need some instruction. And some kids come in with more tools than others. Some
exactly.
kids had a different upbringing, and maybe they were taught a few more things. Maybe, they had a better I don't know, home environment, and others didn't have that. So what do you do?
Right.
Are you like, okay, well, if you didn't have a good home environment, you don't have these skills. I'm not going to teach them
Yeah.
to you. I'm not going to teach you about character, respect, your parents should have done that. Or
Right.
okay, you need help. Let me help you.
Yep.
I got into education because I'm in the helping business. I'm here to
Exactly.
help. So
Yeah.
let me help you.
Yep.
Yeah. But so a little bit, let's go back to your first year though. Like first year
Mhm.
experience overall, it's going well, you said. Overall
Yeah.
it's going,
Yeah.
and you're coming back for year two.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully.
No, yeah, it's funny. The entire year, after Christmas break and everything, like everyone's like, "Oh, they're back. Like he's back. Thank God." Like that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'll be back for year two for sure.
That's
I feel
good.
like I made like an announcement on national television or something.
You put the hat
Like
on, you're like, all right.
I'm going to Miami or something, but
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I'll be back for year two.
that's
Yep.
good. That's good. Why do you think a lot of teachers quit? Why do you think there's a lot of teacher burnout and people are just quitting? First year teachers quitting.
I think so. I'm sorry, my
No,
phone's
it's
about.
fine. It's fine. It's not a
I
problem.
gotta charge it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. It's okay.
You can cut this out, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely cut this out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Good.
no, it's
I'll
not
be
a
right.
problem. Yeah, do you think?
I didn't want to die because we're so close to the end, so I didn't want to.
Yeah,
I think that'll be fun.
yeah, that's fine.
So I'm back. To answer your question, I think a lot of teachers are quitting because it probably just goes back to the structure thing. I think a lot of it has to do with the structure thing. And there's a lot of issues in the education system as a whole.
Mm,
Some schools are better funded than others,
that's right.
and that can have a lot to do with it. A lot of teachers may not have been prepared through student teaching because of COVID. Um, that can have a lot to do with it. Um, a lot of teachers just might not realize the situations that they're putting themselves into with, kids. They might just think that, the classroom's just going to run on its own and the kids are going to come in, they're going to be willing to learn, every single day's going to be completely okay. And they're not going to have, they're not going to, they're not going to have to deal with any outside issues. And that's not the case. So, I mean, I think a lot of teachers are quitting because of situations like that. They're just not fully prepared or fully understanding of education and what it requires on a daily basis,
Yeah,
um, and the ins and outs of it. There's been days at the beginning of the year when I worked until we get out at 4. I drove home, you know, probably like 30-45 minutes home,
yeah,
and then made dinner, worked all night getting the lessons prepared for the next day,
yeah,
and went right to bed.
yeah,
And that was the beginning of the year. So it definitely can be draining. It can be tiring. But again, it goes back to building those relationships, building the structures in your classroom, and those kind of things. And I think that at the end of it, it's worth it
yeah.
because what we're doing is we're trying to prepare the students for the future. You
Mhm.
know, and that's not always going to be pretty, but it requires work, and that's what you're signing up for. And I don't necessarily agree with a lot of schools right now that can't find teachers, so they're just putting people in
Yeah,
that don't necessarily have the requirements, and that can be linked to why they're quitting as well. For example, in Florida, they have people with military background and no education background whatsoever. just being allowed to teach in schools because they have a military background.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but a drill sergeant can't just sit there and yell at the kids and think that they're going to listen to them, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like, it's not boot camp. So,
No, it's not.
you
It's
know,
not.
yeah.
It's I I hate to think like this, but I sometimes I feel like these schools, these urban schools, these schools with brown and black students,
Mm-hmm.
um I feel like a lot of times these schools are underfunded and it almost looks as though they're getting set up for failure. That's what it
Exactly.
looks
Yeah.
like. What it looks like
Right.
to me. And is this
Yeah.
done on purpose? Like, would they put a drill sergeant in like any other? Why do they have to? It's probably
Mm-hmm.
urban school they had to be in or something like that.
Right.
Like, um, why is it like that? Why does it feel as though yes, we need more psychologists in the school. We need more PSWs in the school. We need more counselors in the school. We need more people to help out in the school, but we're underfunded and we don't get those things. Um,
Exactly.
but we need them. We
Right.
definitely need them. And so, these schools don't get them and they work like on a skeleton crew where it's just like the principal and maybe like a part-time assistant principal and another they're just
Mm-hmm.
understaffed.
Right.
And then
And
they
and
say,
it all depends too, like you said. I mean, obviously the district's a big thing, but I've gone, like, last year I went to, teaching education fairs and stuff like that. And there were schools in North Carolina that were trying to pay teachers, $40,000 or $35,000 to start. And
yeah.
it's just like, that's just not right now, you know, especially moving from Pennsylvania to North Carolina.
Hmm.
That would just not have been a livable
Yeah.
wage. I don't
Yeah.
care where I'm at in North Carolina,
Yeah.
Um, so I definitely think there's a funding issue, and like you said, I think there's a lot of schools that are underfunded. I think teachers in general are just underfunded right now, and hopefully that's making a turn. It seems to be that way in a few states at least,
Hmm.
um, because of the shortage, and they're trying to get more people to
Yeah.
become teachers. But again, you know, I don't think that people should just be able to be thrown into a classroom, because what we're ultimately doing is setting our own future up for failure, you know,
Yes.
and I don't think that's fair to them.
Yeah. How about you increase the wages of the teachers and maybe we'll get more people to become teachers and there won't be a teacher shortage, like
Right.
I don't know what the top of your scale is at we're in Florida.
Hmm.
What 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 is the starting salary of a teacher in Florida?
So,
A
before
year
we
or
moved down last year, they actually got a 6% raise. So Collier County, where I teach at, um, starts at 50,000.
okay.
But our neighbor county, um, they had a really, really rough time getting people to teach in their county, in Lee County. So they ended up giving their teachers a raise. So, um, in return, Collier County also gave Collier County teachers a raise. So they bumped it up. I think it starts at 55,000 now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, so that's about what we start at. But again, the scale, we only get a raise every 5 years, and it's only like
Mm.
$400 or $500.
Oh,
So it's like,
oh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Wow.
that goes back to, like, the pay scale. It's just, I mean, you can't expect to raise a good future if people aren't motivated. I mean, I'm not saying that I am, but I know a lot of people that are motivated by money, that want to, um, that are looking to make money as a teacher and stuff like that. Like, it's just hard to live off of that,
Yeah.
um, in
It
county, and
yeah.
especially right now, because, um, we don't live in the county that we teach in, because the rent is, like, extremely expensive there. So it's not worth it.
Yeah. And it goes back to my point where I feel like it's almost done on purpose. Like, okay,
Exactly.
let's underfund this position, and so that now nobody wants to be in this position, and now these schools who house mostly brown and black students
Hmm.
are not going to perform well.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I hate to think like that, but it feels like it's almost done on purpose, you know.
Hmm.
And so I go when I'm in my school, whatever school I'm at, I feel like I gotta be the light, the salt. I gotta shine.
Yeah.
I gotta shine. I don't care what the hell is going on. And you know, like all the other everybody else is gonna quit. That's fine, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Everybody else is gonna be like, you know what, let's forget about. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna make
Yeah.
sure that this school does well.
Yeah.
All the schools around me, I don't know what's happening with them, but in my school, we're gonna be okay, and I'm gonna try my very best to make sure that happens. You know,
Hmm.
so, um,
That's
so
why I do it. Yeah.
yeah,
That's exactly why you got to do it. Yep. That's a
hmm
good mindset to have. And I feel like, honestly, no matter what you're doing, like that's how you should think, especially in teaching. Like no matter
yeah,
your position in a school, the person next to you can be negative as can be. Just don't feed into it
yeah.
because
That's right.
they're only going to bring you down. You
That's
know.
right. Um, so we're coming to an end right here. Three. I always have my podcast with this. Three tips that you could give to any future educators, and you being a first year teacher, what can you? What are some tips you could give to the next line of educators coming in?
Hmm. I definitely think it goes back to some things we talked about in our episode today. Is make sure that you are as structured as possible. That's my number one thing. Well, let's we'll do it in reverse order. So number three will be you're as structured as possible, right?
Yeah,
Um, I think that that's very very important because, like I said earlier in the episode, is like if you're not very structured, the classroom's not going to be structured. The learning's not going to be structured. It's honestly just going to set yourself up for failure. So, just trying to maintain a structure that is vivid for not only you but the students in the classroom is very very important.
yeah,
Number two is don't get discouraged about the bad days. There's
yeah,
definitely going to be days where you're just like, is this really for me? Do I really want to do this because of behaviors that you may have dealt with that day, or issues that you're dealing with in the classroom, things like that. Um, but know that once you give up, that is the student's way of students are going to look at that and say, he's given up, so therefore I can give up. You
yeah,
know, so just like you said, just being that light for them, being that person that's always there, always somebody to talk to, always giving your best effort is my number two, my number two most important thing. Um, and my number one, I feel they could really go in any order, but number one is probably to get involved in the school. I think that getting involved in the school, and I like how you said earlier, like you're always out in the courtyard, you're always out, in the gym class, playing kickball with them or whatever. Um, Getting involved in the school is something that I've really tried to make sure that I'm doing this year. I didn't get a coaching position like I wanted to. I did have, the athletic director reached out and everything, but it would have been a lot this year just because of my commute and everything. And I'm definitely going to do it in the future. Um, but the more you get involved, the better. First of all, the better it's going to look to your principal. Like your principal is going to love to see that you're involved in the school.
yeah,
But also, it's going to look great to the kids as well. That you're setting an example for them, because in the future they're going to get involved in high school activities and stuff like that. So, just being able to see that no matter what, as your teacher, I'm not just here to teach you and give you information, but I'm also here to you know um, have fun in the classroom and outside the classroom as well. Just try to set an example for them, as this isn't just me preaching information all day every day. That's not what I want. I want an environment where the information's also they're also able to tell me information inside the classroom, outside the classroom, because the more they see you, the more comfortable they're going to get with you, and that's just how you build that respect and rapport as a teacher.
Perfect. Well, Dylan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. My first year teacher on this podcast. Really appreciate that.
Hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.